And here we go. Hey, welcome everybody to Everyone Can Walk on Water website. This is the Walk on Water YouTube channel. We're doing our second voyage today with the doing broadcasts on YouTube. I'd like to welcome everybody and that comes in and has a listen. I'd like to introduce a friendly local. His name's Carter Lee, and he's from Texas, and he was on the last one as well. So I'd like to welcome Carter into the conversation today. Welcome, Carter.
Hello, thanks for having me on again, Dave. Nice to be here, and I'm looking to have some good conversations today.
Excellent, excellent. Well, by the title of the show today is um, the Walk on Water and learning yourself in the realm of law is what this basic concept is what I my aim is on the not just this series but on something more I have coming up. And what that means to the general population and why that's important is fundamentally what we have to get to understand. So we have to find, in order to know you have a problem, you got to identify the problem. So that's what we're going to aim at. The common man understand the threat that they're under and what they've been under, but they didn't realize was there. So to start that off, we're going to go over jurisdictions today. We're going to hit some headlines. We got some. What I'd also like to do as a primary focus is use um, media sites and media headlines for an example, but not just mainstream media. Obviously, we're going to be looking at and introducing some people, I guess, to some of these sites that they haven't, might not have gone to before or have been to but don't frequent. So we're going to hit some of those and pull some of their stories and kind of have a discussion on that. And I'm sure Carter has some that he'd like to talk about and discuss. And that'll be probably, I don't really want to put a time frame on it, but it'll be down the road as I go through this. So, to start us off, let's go over jurisdictions. Well, Carter, is there anything you'd like to kind of open up with and kind of introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, I'd like to introduce myself and what I'm going to talk about here. And my whole thing that I've been studying right now is the occult, esoteric side, the Illuminati and the powers that should not be, and the powers that we're trying to recognize. And it seems like in our research, there's a lot of confusion as to who is really at the top, and who they are. And we only know just a little. We only know just a little bit of what they are doing. We've got to really get to the bottom of all of this. And what I've been doing is I've been going in and looking at the history, and
You've
you
done
know
some
I've been reading
crazy.
some books too. So that's just kind of, since that's what I'm researching at the moment, that's going to be kind of what I bring to the table today. But
Right.
I just want to let you know that I've been trying to figure out what this whole occult, esoteric side of exoteric and exoteric, this whole side of the what's going on, and how what's happening today and how it relates today.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and I know you've done a ton of research and a lot of reading. And your most recent one is kind of something I'd like to go over later, if you don't mind. Um, so if you have any of your other the books the most recent one is the one I really want to kind of touch on because it's kind of highly important. Um, anyway, welcome, Carl. Appreciate you coming in. I'd like to get this broadened out where we have some other people in there with this as well. But until we get a kind of a handle on how this all works, we're going to kind of, put it together this way. So the first thing I'd like to go over is obviously learning yourself in a realm of law And why that's really important in everyday everybody's life on a daily basis, 24/7, asleep or awake. You have different realms um, of existence. Is the best way to put it. The first concept, the way to kind of get the idea in your head is um, when you were born, you were under the jurisdiction of your mother and father. Okay, so what is a jurisdiction? Is the best way to look at it from that standpoint. The jurisdiction is your mother and father laying down rules for you that you can and cannot do. If you have a free spirit, and they that's totally unconditioned to say we call them behaviors. And if you didn't have the mom and dad there to lay down the jurisdiction, their law, their rules for your um, occupation of their home, right? So within their four walls, it's their rules, their jurisdiction. Well, on top of mom and dad's jurisdiction, there's a jurisdiction around them that tells them what to do. That would be um, your everyday laws, right? What you would consider your state and federal. On top of the state jurisdiction, there's a federal jurisdiction. Okay, so that's the best way to look at it. Is at the same time that you have your, if you're at work, you have the rules that you're supposed to abide by your employer. That's their jurisdiction. On top of those jurisdictions, at the exact same time is your conventional, what you consider your law that is around you at all times, right? So there's three basic um, realms of jurisdiction. Okay, the first of which is fundamental, right? There's no there's not a bunch of arbitrary or people coming in and saying that are coming in and laying down some sort of rule or law. So you have non-law. The only real law there um, is the idea of do no harm to others, and that would be best way to look at these jurisdictions, or the three primary jurisdictions, is what makes up the world that you live in, right? You have land, you have the water, and you have the air. You need water, and your body's made up 70 some percent water or more, depending on who you talk to. The earth is made up about 70% water, and then the rest is land, and all around all that is air. Okay, so you have an air jurisdiction, a land jurisdiction, and an I already say air, land, and sea jurisdictions. So as the human beings came into to be, and you had tribes, and your past tribes, you got into colonies, you got from colonies into nations, and then so on and so forth, to where we are today. You had to um, secure, if you will, certain legal aspects. Give you an example. Fundamentally, of that is, I bought this pencil today, and that pencil is my pencil, and it's no one else's pencil if I don't want them to have it. So if somebody came and took that pencil, you had to have something to come back at them and say, no, you don't. It's unjustified for you to. Okay, so we understand that the basic function, there needs to be something there, and hence the jurisdictions, hence all the laws that pertain to each. And if you notice, as I go through this, you have your basic fundamental jurisdiction, which is the air, where the only law, and this is international understanding, it's not a made up concept, in that the law of the air, the jurisdiction of the air, the only law that exists in that is do no harm to others. Don't impede upon their free will as well, right? You have free will, you don't impede on others their own free will, as long as they don't hurt someone else or impede upon someone else there, and no, there is no violation, no victim, no crime. Okay, then you have the common, what came to be known as common law, or the common, and that's the jurisdiction of the land, which morphed into through English, I believe at the time, was English common law was what was founded in this country, in the colonies and into the beginning stages of America. It was common law, which was the American common law was a little bit tweaked from the European side, but it was the idea is to perfect these concepts, not to just dismantle them and you know go fall into another um, complete new construct that someone made up, right? So we're trying the idea being is the evolution of man is to become more able to and understand basic concepts of freedom, and that's been the fight from the beginning of time, as far as we know it, is man's quest to free themselves from arbitrary or other people claiming that they can tell you what to do and when not to do it, and so on and so forth. And it gets down to some really crazy concepts. So the land jurisdiction is the primary one we're supposed to be. That's what the founding documents um, laid out for us, right? They cemented, if you will, put into English, common everyday English, um, what the jurisdiction that the people are ruled by, or you don't even want to say ruled by, but are in complete agreement with, is the American common law. And from that um, came, uh, let's call it the commerce jurisdiction or the sea jurisdiction. The sea jurisdiction, again, pertains to commerce or commercial use of the people's resources. So, the concept is this: once the humanity got to the point where they were traveling and using boats out on the waterways, right, rivers and canals and streams or whatnot, um, all the way to using the boats on the ocean and out at sea, there had to be some sort of understanding amongst them when if you had a mainly royalty at the time shipping goods from one shore to another shore, you had to make sure that the products or what have you, the items that were being shipped were protected with some kind of basic understanding that they're going to be paid for or what have you when they get there. So you had to have some rules drawn up. And that's, again, international understanding of things. So the law of the sea was only, it only covers, or the law of water, the jurisdiction of water only covers seaways, bays, the inland waterways, things like that. And without going into the history of it, which I will as we go through, but this is again trying to get a basic understanding of how these things work is my primary focus. So you had um, the law of the jurisdiction of the sea. Now, according to today's understanding and what people are automatically uh, assuming is that they are beholden to rules and regulations that pertain to a jurisdiction that they are not technically able to be in. They are able to be in through permissional, again, going through licenses and this, that, and the other, to participate in a commercial capacity in the jurisdiction of the sea. What we call today, or if you walk into a courtroom, it's maritime admiralty law. The evidences are shown in any courtroom with the flag with tassels. I'm sure everybody's heard all this, the gold trim. It's the wrong dimensions to be a common law flag, um, but we won't go into all that. The stars and stripes, right? Or they call it the stars and bars, right? That sounds kind of kind of crazy there, but that's what the military calls it, stars and bars. Um, with the gold Grinch flag, and the judge is on the deck. He's up off the ground and higher than the people coming into it to be blessed by his presence, I guess, if you will. So that is a sea jurisdiction. That's a you're automatically assumed to be in a jurisdiction of the sea or always in commerce, and you must provide the evidences to show that you are not. And the way we are raised and the way we are conditioned to believe, we don't even understand that that's what we're supposed to do when we're there, is to automatically, and they're supposed to assume that you are not in the sea jurisdiction, not in commerce, at the time of, say, a traffic ticket or a traffic light camera or what have you, victimless crimes at this point. Let's keep it simple. The prosecutor and judge should not even be hearing you. They should automatically know that, well, you didn't prove that they were in the C jurisdiction or in our jurisdiction, so that case must be dropped, and sorry about the inconvenience. However, that's not how we woke up in. We woke up into automatically the system assumes you're in commerce and therefore in the C jurisdiction or a merchant. In this case, what they're assuming you to be is a voluntary um, a naval, not even a private. Okay, they're assuming you're in a naval position, and you're a asset of the National Naval Academy, if you will, which you don't have any idea that that's what's going on. But we're going to show you over time, and as we evolve the show, how this has been done and how you don't even know it's happening. So the first step to learning yourself in law is the basic principle is the three jurisdictions and knowing what jurisdiction you're supposed to be in and automatically assumed to be in. And you're supposed to, at this point in the climate that we're in, we have to learn that from scratch. We have to teach people, that's the primary focus, is teach people the jurisdiction they're supposed to be in and what the system is supposed to be doing in its role in securing your freedom. And from that, that's what they're contracted to do. That's what they must provide, otherwise be in breach. And then we're supposed to understand what to do when the breach has occurred, which we don't know that. So that's what we're going to go into as we learn ourselves and what jurisdiction we're supposed to be in. Once we know what we're supposed to be in, how to take action in our own lives to secure our interest. Now, once we secure our interest, to make the choice if we want to hold the people accountable that are in the under the trust, the contracts of the people, under the public trust, under the people's trust. Are they living up to that? If they are not, then we have to know what to do to make the adjustments that need to be made. And that's what, again, we're in the midst of it. And as I do these broadcasts as well, I'm going to show that through headlines and through different stories that usually tend to slip by people, to kind of show you. And some people don't want to go into some of the realms that we have to go into in order to lay this out. And that, again, is up to the individual, but we must go there, right? We have to go into some, let's call it esoteric, the occulted side, is a fundamental piece to understanding it. It all comes together and it all webs together. So to make sure we're going over to the basic concept that we got, I wanted to lay out today, and if Carter has any questions, I'd like to hear them on the three basic jurisdictions. The air jurisdiction, which is basically encompasses any living and dead souls, spirits, angels, demons, ideas, global in nature. They're controlled by the Pope and his appointees, which will go into the evidences thereof. The sea jurisdiction, which is all vessels, mariners, sailors, merchants, creators of creatures of the sea, international in its nature as well. Those are controlled by the British monarchs, which will show evidences thereof. The land jurisdiction, all resources of the land, including people, animals, plants, minerals, are national in nature and are controlled by the Spanish king if there's one available, which we'll go over that. So the basic three internationally understood jurisdictions. Anything other is you have to go through your own individual countries, which we'll go into the ones pertaining to America and the United States, and we'll go over those as we go through this. But Carter, as far as the jurisdictions, did you have any possible questions that you might have?
Uh, well, when it comes to the jurisdictions, so when we're born into this system, and we don't really have much control of what's going on, and our parents, sign us off to this um, corporation that we're now in. That creates so that puts us in the jurisdiction of the sea, right? And that puts
No, no, it doesn't put you in the jurisdiction. They're creating evidences that you are, but you're not saying that you're not.
all right. So they create the evidences that you are in the jurisdiction of the sea. How does one combat that? Because we know that that's not the jurisdiction that we should be in. That's
Well, that's the problem. Is that's what we're here for, or I'm here for, is that people don't know that. They're assuming that the system has put them in the proper jurisdiction or assumes them to be in jurisdiction, so therefore they don't have to even think about jurisdiction or what it even means. Does it exist? That realm of existence doesn't exist to the general population, right? So okay, so I understand what you're asking. You have If you don't understand it doesn't even exist, you're not ever going to ask a question. So the first step to, again, was what I'm here for, is to go to that first step. Is first identify that that's where you're supposed to be, and this even exists, right? And then once we get the general population, now this would be the general population in the 1800s, 1700s, 1600s understood this, right? Particular in America, obviously, as the country was being going from colonies and this, that, and the other, and gathering together and coming together with the understanding of things. And again, you have to rid yourself of the things that materialize, like such as slavery, such as the witch trials, and these really trying times are the social design manifested those anomalies, fixed those anomalies, and then we're here today. So today, the general population doesn't even know this stuff exists. So to get to correct what your parents did by changing or signing off the rights to um, what we would call your inheritance, your birthright, was signed off to the federal government, which is the corporation that you mentioned, and that corporation controls your um, inheritance or your what I just called it. They control that trust because your parents and yourself were not responsible enough or felt you weren't responsible enough as their justification, even though you didn't even know it existed, and neither did your parents. So it's nobody's real fault except for the system that is doing it, right? Because they're supposed to notify you. When you're sitting down when you're first born and your parents are sitting down with all the agreements, they put all this in with all the financial stuff, all the different procedural stuff, all the vaccination fucking, forms. Sorry about this, the curse. Um, you have all this whole catalog of documentations that they're supposed to be laying out for you word for word and legally, or what would be called lawfully, but they don't do that, right? It's a doctor, you're going through and with a doctor that's going to tell you something pertaining to jurisdictions, and not, they're not even, so it's not something that we're aware of. So to correct that, there's a process to correct it. There is a remedy to it, but first we have to um, get the general population to understand themselves in this from this way of understanding themselves.
Mm-hmm.
and that's the biggest battle right now. But there is a process. It's a very it's the again it's something that I'm going to lay out in details, and I'm going to show you some different avenues of and different types of strategies to correct it, and then to make sure you're corrected, and then learn how to enforce that. Did that kind of go over some of your question? It's kind of long.
Yeah. So I mean, what? So we've got it. So we find ourselves in the situation. We're put in the jurisdiction of the sea. How do we? I'm kind of going back to the same question. I'm just trying to get,
You're
what are
you're
the first steps that we need to take? What do we need to do? What is the? How do we combat this?
okay. Yeah, the first thing to do is the first thing to again the number one thing to do is identify the problem. Right, you have to identify that there is even a problem that exists. So the process of doing that is kind of the biggest first step.
All
The
right.
second step that you would do is once you understand, fully understand what's going on, or to the best of your knowledge, you are able to comprehend the concept that you have ultimate and only control over the things and your actions and your things, and no one else has authority to come in and intercede in any way, shape, or form, unless you allow that someone to do that, and to a certain degree, because at the fundamental down to the law perspective, you're not even able to give away your human rights. You're not even able to sign an agreement saying that I am no longer human. I am to be considered cattle. You're not able to do that, because then being able to do that in any kind of justification side, then you're now saying that everyone else is just as expendable, which can't be done, right? So the concept being is international understanding of things is you can't sign off your humanity. You're not able to do it, right? So therefore, the system is not even supposed to even try. But that's again what they have done. So the next step, the second step, once you identify yourself as a living man and human being that lives on land and should not be judged or tried by a jurisdiction of the sea or the water, then you have to secure evidences. You don't even have to. You can act in the way and then fight it out every time, or you create evidences that you're not in their jurisdiction. And then that again goes into there's some process there that goes as we go through these shows. We'll lay some of them out.
Right. So the first step is identifying the problem, trying to figure out, what the heck is going on, and I think that's what we're doing right now is trying to
Right,
identify the problem.
right, absolutely. So again, it goes to there's this, it's a slow peeling of the onion. You gotta get your understanding, and it takes you personal responsibility to take interest in things that don't necessarily seem all that exciting. But once you learn about it, it's the only thing that matters, right? What we're discussing is the only thing that matters in our lives, far beyond any checkbook balances or far beyond any cable bill or UFC show, right? However, I understand how people find those things more distracting. Responsibility to okay, I got to learn this, right? I got to understand what being a citizen is, or what being uh, a state national is, or what have you. And again, that's what we're going to be laying out. And again, to kind of give what's on my screen is Anna von Ritz. Her website's annavonritz.com. She goes over a great. She fundamentally lays this stuff out in elementary school manner. It kind of gets a little sticky on some aspects, which we'll go over as we go forward. In another broadcast, we'll go over some of this stuff in detail. But if you want to start kind of getting a little bit of an understanding of it, hit her website, annavonritz.com. I'll have the links and stuff in the description below to check it out. But she's connected to some good groups. She's a judge in uh, Alaska. She's got a great book. That's right here, which I'll put a link to in the description. So just click the link and you can check out her book. It's You Know Something Is Wrong When, an American Affidavit for Probable Cause. Now, what I'm going to be laying out in this series, not this particular series, but going forward, I'll be mentioning as we go that it's a crime. It's a crime for a system to assume and force you to comply to that assumption by lack of education and lack of knowledge and not providing a public service to, since the parents you would be the ones teaching you, since the parents don't know, you're not learning this stuff. So um, since the system hasn't educated you and had you as an informed individual, it's a crime. It's called that's press ganging. Press ganging is the act of the police officer forcing you into their jurisdiction, and in their jurisdiction being the law of the sea, the jurisdiction of the sea for commercial code law, and then you're not knowing it, so you can't defend yourself, so you pay a fine, and you're paying on top of paying on top of paying on top of not just physical money, but spending time in jail or away from your family for hours on end or days, all for something that you technically doesn't even apply to you. And some of it's pretty silly. Silly meaning very serious, to be honest, but it's kind of ridiculous. We're going to be laying that out as well, and I'll show you through their own documentation how this is not supposed to be happening to us. And it's not only it's our founding documents all lay it out for us. We just got to understand what's being said and not trust some people to come in and decipher it for you when it's plain as English. It's plain English. It's all right there. There's no magic to it, right? It's magic to turn around and make you think that it's not there. It's make you question what's being said clearly, and it's a trick to make you think that it's not that clear. I mean, it sounds crazy, but it's true. But that's one excellent source to, and I'll have some links at my website, which I believe you guys can see my screen. And Carter, you can see my screen, right?
Um, yeah, yep, I can see it.
Okay, so I'll set up a special one for Anna von Ritz's stuff. So all you people can actually come in and hopefully, you know, jump on my site, and I'll have everything there, and I'll have the links at the bottom in the description. Also, we would like to go over basic headlines, um, and we'll go over more going forward. We'll go over more on the jurisdictional side, and on the next show, I'll probably take that and kind of move it into show you how this works in the real world, and affects your everyday life without you really seeing it. But as far as Infowars is probably one of the most hot number one things. It's the most controversial either way you look at it, but it's very useful information, um, especially coming from a perspective now that he's got more um, hosts and more show varieties that are more digestible to the general population. Alex had a tendency to be kind of very abrupt and very loud, which I love it. However, some people don't get into that, and some people are designed to kind of come down and criticize it anyway. But as far as on their headlines, um, I found the one the DHS announces program to legally scan American faces, which they've been doing. It's not if you go to any security system at Walmart, they have been facial recognizing you from uh, I'd say a good 7 to 10, if not longer, years, but at least most recently, where everybody's looking at it and can see it plain as day, you're talking at least within the last 10 years. So if you go in and you go for a job application, fill out a application for Walmart security, and after you got hired and you went through all the stuff, you'd come up into a main office, and most likely, or at some point, you'd be able to see the security system. Now, what you would see if you're watching people walk by, and everybody sees it on their phone, a little square box comes up over people's faces. That box coming up is automatically grabbing that data, reading the data, identifying that it is a face, so therefore it has the details to the face, and therefore, whoosh, right? You have it on everything. And it's been operating, I'd say, on a massive scale, especially in any of these, the Walmarts and the um, big chain stores, not necessarily like your local grocery store. I'm sure they do in some ways. It might be other now, but especially Walmart, Sam's, Costco, these kind of things. It all facial recognizing you. But that's a really good. If you have a chance, read that article. It's kind of an interesting thing. The DHS, which we'll be going over at some point, Department of Homeland Security, is a particular interest of some of my discussions that we'll be having going forward. Car, did you have any headlines that you liked on Infowars?
Oh yeah, I do. Off Infowars, I was looking at some of the live stuff. Alex was he's got a live event going on right now, and he's talking about North Korea announcing a nuclear sneak attack. So I think that we've been talking about World War III, um, and you know I think that this is part of something that we need to keep an eye on because we got people going to Bitcoin.
Right,
There's like some kind of EMP attack, that's going to cause
right,
some issues,
yeah.
especially if there's some kind of nuclear bomb attack. I mean, that would cause some crazy stuff. But I don't know if we have anti nuclear missile technology, but
Well,
that
I mean, we do, but it's a question if that would be used or not. I mean,
that was one thing that I was kind of keeping an eye on. Another thing was uh, what's going on with Donald Trump. He's there's so much going on these days. It's just crazy coming here towards the end of the year, and there's all kinds of stuff just coming out every
yeah.
day, and especially with this new executive order that he signed. I don't know if that's something you want to get into.
Yeah, I'm gonna hit on that. It's already on my roster. Okay, like the let's hit on. You brought up the. Now my brain's thinking about the executive order, but you brought up the China, North Korea thing. Okay.
Yeah.
And did you see the one where they, uh, I guess the North Koreans somehow snagged a ship? I don't know if you dug into that one yet or not.
I
Um,
I think I might have heard something, but
this
I'm
is
not.
this is my personal take on the North Korea issue. To me, it's a ruse. It's a red herring. It's a distractionary tactic. Now, I don't even like talking about this necessarily in this way because if it is the way I see it, and I'll kind of lay into why I see it this way as we go, but I see a lot of these things that are um, the Jerusalem, where Trump um, makes the comment, which almost every president has made a similar comment, but they're making a big stink about it right now. And I think he knew that it was going to happen. That's why he did it and made such a big deal about it, about calling Jerusalem or recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Now, here's the thing, and people jump on this whole thing, right? Where he's siding with Israel and all this stuff, which at this point you have to assume that he is. However, if you look at the same time at what's actually happening, his actions speak louder than words. The these type of events, and the North Korea included in this, and Iran included in this at this point, I believe are distractions as they peel the onion on this pedophile ring. Because to beyond people's fathom, is this pedophile ring and the human trafficking that's been going on for millennia was built in right along with the system that we live in. And I'm willing to tell you and willing to show you the evidences that it's all the way down to your everyday life existence was built around to hide the fact that the system that was built around you is a pedophile satanic ring. Sounds crazy, but I'll show you the evidences of that. And a lot of people that would listen to this already pretty much know this, but they don't realize that, again, it goes down to the jurisdictions that you don't know exist. The magic, the Babylonian magic, the that was laid into your system and you didn't know was there, built right in. But those the North Korea and Iran and the Israeli Jerusalem issue are all distractions. He's playing those cards to keep the media going after him, and even some alternative media and fake alternative media that, and I'll get into explain that in a second. Into these trapped into these stories, and goes after these pedophiles because it's a huge network that again is built right into your everyday life, and you're talking all these FEMA camps or these detainment or what do they call them? What do they call the FEMA camps? They don't call them FEMA camps. They call them deterrent or uh,
Detainment center,
there's a couple different
something.
names they use. But the Gitmo, all this, I'm telling you, as this is playing out, and it's playing out right now, where these places are being used to house these people. And as we get closer to Hillary, Podesta, and even Mueller's heavily tied. Session has some ties to it. I don't know to what extent on Sessions, but I do know there's some problems there. Biden, Obama, all these guys, Bush. It's not there's no political party to this. This is all both parties the whole time. Your whole life has been doing this, and it's going to be crazy. But all these places are being used for them and will be used for them as we go through this, and it's happening right behind everything. But again, it's designed to keep everybody. They're already used to having calamities happening all the time, or different types of the things keeping them distracted. They're used to it. That they don't have it, they feel like a withdrawal or missing it, and they can, including their cell phone if they have them on 24/7. So they all constantly getting this constant feed of either fear-based material, knowledge-based material, which goes into your love-based material, and it's up to us to be able to navigate that ourselves. And if you are going to be, glued to your phone, increase your knowledge, learn something. Don't just trust people, me or Alex Jones or Anna von Ritz or Le Pen or any of these, anybody. You're learning for yourself, right? You're going to have your own opinion and your own absorption rate and your own understanding of things when you come out the other side. So, and again, that's all welcome. It's great. It's an amazing thing. I got sidetracked, but I did want to push, or I wanted to kind of go over something. So those to me are red herrings. Those are kind of at this point they've been talked about ad nauseum, and they can escalate, keep escalating, and absolutely nothing will ever happen. It just keeps escalating, keeps escalating. Give an example on the North Korea thing. They've had, there is no evidence to you or I sitting on the ground, grab something to read, okay? Because you're not going to go tromping over to North Korea to take a look at a silo, right? So what you can read, there is no evidence that says that they even have nuclear capability. There's evidence that shows that they have the ability to launch a can into the water. All right, that's about it. They have an engine that can carry an empty can, as far as we know. Now, here's where they do have a technology that isn't talked about, and that's the satellites. They have two satellites that pass over our heads every day, twice a day. Nobody talks about those. Now, nobody knows what's on those. Okay, if you ever go to what Star Wars program really is, you've got some stuff up there just spinning around over our heads that we don't even think about, don't consider. But North Korea's been passing over our heads for days, a couple times a day. And if they were going to do something, they would have done it already. I'm telling you. And not only on top of that, if they were going to do something, um, they could do it without launching a missile. Okay, but I do want to say this: if there is an event, okay, let's say a nuclear event or an EMP, they can simulate that. They can simulate a high altitude nuclear detonation high in the sky that nobody heard, seen, or tasted, or whatever, caused an EMP, shut down the whole grid. The only clue you would have is your car if it's still running, and some of them don't, some of them do. You get when you get into the science, if the car's running, then it won't get zapped. If the car's off, it'll get zapped, or if the car's off, it won't get zapped. I mean, there's all different. When you get into this whole EMP thing, the only clue you're going to have that it could have been some kind of nuclear event that's not a simulation drill, let's say, the technology is there to shut it down, right? Your cell phone, your home power, your the only thing, the evidence on the ground saying, okay, if it was an EMP, would my car be running? And the only evidence you're going to find scientifically is maybe it would. It just so happens, right? So, and again, that can before I eat any of their bread, I look at it, right? If they said national emergency EMP went off and all electronics is down and all that stuff, I'm still going to question if there was if it was Iran or if it was North Korea, if it's even just a a kill switch that they have, you know, it can be anything. They can simulate just about anything you could think of. They can run a psyop on you, and you wouldn't know the difference. You'd have to be questioning it the whole time, right? If they say the Russians hacked the DNC computers, they have. You're telling me that they think the general population doesn't realize that they can mirror themselves, that they can hide themselves behind a Russian IP and make it look like it's a Russian spy or a Russian network coming in and hacking something. You know what I mean? So they can simulate any of these events that they want, and you or I on the ground are not going to know any different unless we're smart enough and able to, have discernment and get the facts as they come out, right? Anyway, sorry about that.
Yeah. Another thing that I wanted to touch on was the UN peacekeepers in Chicago whole thing, and I haven't really
Oh
seen
yeah.
anything come out since that guy came out and called for the UN peacekeepers to come in. Um, so have you heard any information about that? Any
Yeah, I'm gonna look it up real quick.
Because
There's
I haven't seen any reports of any UN activity or trucks being shot. I've only heard stuff here and there about some activity, but it seems like there's some kind of media blackout. I haven't heard anything.
Yeah. Okay. On the this is not new. This is something that's been mentioned several times, right? Chicago, Detroit brought it up to bring to have the UN come in, and here I'll show you that one. Let's do a Google UN Detroit UN for water. So that it's part of an international concept. The I'll give you an example. You have executive orders and different types of legislation that allows Canada to come in during a time of emergency, and their fire departments, um, their police forces, or what have you, ambulance services, anything like that can come into the United States, and the United States can go into Canada during times of emergency. Now, the emergency is defined by their definitions, so you have to have some wherewithal and know what they mean by that, which me is, basically saying they can come in and out of our country and pretty much anytime they want. However, the UN in Chicago is a big deal, and I'll tell you why. A little bit different than most. What's going again, and it goes back to this trafficking concept, this trafficking thing that people are going to be finding out. 2018 is going to be. I've got it titled as the Justice 2018 because it's going to be peeling this big old onion. And this onion, now I'll tell you what the connection is here. Is Rob Emanuel? Is now some people should know this, but I won't go into what he supposedly is. However, heavily connected to Obama, his brother and his father have direct ties to some interesting cats, which puts him directly in some interesting little perspective on him. But heavily connected to Obama and Hillary, and again, it goes back to heavily connected to some trafficking as well, and part of that organization that's going to be coming out. So Trump has actually offered help to bring this under control, the whole violence in Detroit or violence in Chicago, the gun-free zone, where the people can't defend themselves. Which, anyway, sorry. The um, Trump has offered, federal assistance on that. He's saying no way, right? He's completely backing down from that, and they're pushing this narrative with the UN. Now, what that tells me is this: is that by refusing Trump's assistance, okay, in this matter, shows his intent because he knows he's heavily tied to Hillary. He's heavily tied to this stuff. If he's not already aware of indictments that are on him or staffers around him, he knows it's coming. So he's going to draw a thin red line, right? He's going to have some, and the connections that he has to Israel will require him to have some protection. That's the other thing I want to go over that most people don't talk about either. Is all these what takes so long for this particular um, indictments to unfold is that these people have CIA clearance. Okay, they have Hillary would have CIA immunity that has to be overcome. It's a jurisdiction that's there that we don't. Again, we don't even know our own jurisdiction. How are we going to know that? That's Hillary has through the State Department and through the departments that they have. Holder, Obama, all these people have CIA clearance and CIA immunities to certain aspects of their life, and I guarantee you they sealed all these up in documentations, meaning that it's fraud, but they still have to be proven to be fraud. And there's a whole other layer to this that has to be finagled in order to make sure that things stick to them, right? Because right now they're like they got grease on them and things don't stick. Now before they had complete control, now they lost control. It's just a matter of the Trump control group coming in saying, "No, you're going to go down." They have to get all these things sealed up, and that'll come out as time goes on too. When they start doing the Nuremberg trials on Hillary and them, it's going to come out that okay, you guys gave yourself passes on this stuff. A CIA asset when you're a Secretary of State, right, or whatever. It'll come out that they gave themselves passes in order to delay their demise. That's all it was for. They knew it was coming. They didn't. They were hoping that they would be able to seal this up, but they didn't. We got to them first, right? We got to them before they could seal it up. Now that doesn't mean they'll go down without a fight. Trust me on that one. And Hillary's kill list has grown huge since all this has been coming out. That kill list has grown beyond recognition. But the UN has been used and has been put in the media. It's preemptive programming into the population to see the UN as a friendly peacekeeping force, which they are not, right? There is no record that they have that shows that they're a peacekeeping force besides the parroted line, right? Any of their record shows internationally they are not ones you want to have in your country. We don't want them, right? So any advice that they might have, that's to me and a lot of other people as well. The UN branch, the UN, the head UN building headquarters is right there in New York. Only solidifies the harlot, of Babylon. It's a one world systematic jurisdiction of the sea, hence the blue helmets, right? A global blood, right? Blooding the world with the jurisdiction of the water.
Yeah. Right.
So the UN has been used and parroted, but I do see Rob Emmanuel on this one. I see him a little bit different because I know he's tied into this. Again, the UN is also tied to human trafficking and human right violations and abuses all over the world. So they're all kind of friends, or what do they call it, birds of a feather flock together. And he's heavily tied to the Israelis, which we'll go over. I'll show you all that stuff too. But yeah. Anyway,
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
that's kind of
You're I'm breaking up on myself.
yeah. That's all right. What were you gonna say?
Hello?
You there?
Hold on.
I'll just in this right here. I'm on the UN's UN.org in Detroit front page. In Detroit, city-backed water shutoffs, contrary to human rights, say UN experts. All right. Now, back when Detroit was going through craze and shutting it down, basically letting the criminals take over, if you will, um, they the mayor and them wanted to have the UN come in and distribute water and all this stuff. And they're always brought up. It's nothing new. It's just something that we have to watch because of the circumstances. This was 2014. Yeah,
That
yeah.
I can't hear you.
Um, well, you can't hear me at all.
No, no, I can't.
All right, we got to shut down. Hold on.